News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini. We're tracking developments in the Los Angeles area where a vehicle drove into a crowd early this morning in East Hollywood, injuring more than 30 people and sending multiple victims to local hospitals. LA Fire Department says it happened around 2 a.m. on Santa Monica Boulevard. Some are critically injured, others in serious condition. More than a dozen ambulances, fire engines, and special rescue teams responding to the scene. The cause being investigated. ABC, citing police, says preliminary indications are the driver may have lost consciousness. The Justice Department is asking a federal court to unseal grand jury transcripts in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking case, as the administration seeks to contain the firestorm that erupted after it earlier announced it would not be releasing additional files from that case, despite previously pledging to do so. Sarah Krisoff, former assistant U.S. attorney from the Southern District of New York and now a partner at Cozen O'Connor, says she doesn't have firsthand account of what's in those files, but she says grand jury proceedings don't often include everything the government has in a case.
Grand jury testimony is going to be very limited compared to the entire case file.
Meantime, President Trump is filing a $10 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal and media mogul Rupert Murdoch after the Journal published a story alleging he once sent a suggestive birthday letter to the disgraced late financier. The president says the letter is fake in a social media post, and Dow Jones says it will vigorously defend against any lawsuit. Separately, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard declassifying an email trove purporting to expose a Democratic conspiracy to cast doubt on President Trump's 2016 election win and alleged Russia ties. Gabbard's claim stands in contrast to the findings of a bipartisan Senate investigation and CIA review. Sarepta is refusing a request from the Food and Drug Administration. More from Bloomberg's Ed Kalegi.
The FDA says Sarepta has refused to pause all shipments of its Elevidys treatment after 3 deaths were linked to the company's gene therapies. 2 teenage boys died of acute liver failure in recent months after taking Elevidys. They were being treated for Duchenne muscular dystrophy and were not able to walk because of the muscle wasting disease. Separately, the company said Friday that a 51-year-old patient died of acute liver failure last month in an early-stage trial of a gene therapy to treat limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. Ed Kalegi, Bloomberg Radio.
Thank you, Ed. Investors also watching the latest developments on U.S. trade wars. Japan's top trade negotiator, Ryosei Akazawa, says he is aiming to visit Washington this coming week to continue efforts to win tariff concessions after talks earlier today in Japan with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent didn't touch on the issue. Akazawa is trying to secure a deal before August 1, when across-the-board tariffs on Japan's exports to the U.S. are set to jump, along with U.S. tariffs on multiple other countries. We're also keeping an eye out for more drama at the Federal Reserve ahead of a key FOMC meeting on interest rates later this month. Fed Governor Chris Waller telling us the Fed should cut interest rates soon on signs of weakness in the labor market.
You know, if you're walking on a lake and the ice is frozen and it sounds safe, but when you start hearing cracks, and that's what I feel like, it's too late once you go through the ice. So you've got to start prepping in advance before you have that happen.
Waller, in a wide-ranging interview on Bloomberg Radio and television. Earlier in a speech in New York, he said inflation risks were limited. Meantime, fresh developments in President Trump's ongoing pressure on Fed Chair Jay Powell. More from Bloomberg's Nancy Lyons.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell has been under scrutiny by the Trump administration for so-called extravagant spending on renovations at the Federal Reserve headquarters. President Trump has even considered it as grounds for firing Powell. But now we're hearing the marble finishes that have been cited as lavish were added to the plans at the request of 3 Trump appointees. They said it would better fit the building's historic character. In Washington, Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio.
Thank you, Nancy. Bitcoin in focus this weekend, along with other cryptocurrencies, after President Trump signed the first federal bill to regulate stablecoins, hailing it as a step toward U.S. dominance of crypto. The measure requires firms to hold dollar-for-dollar reserves in short-term government debt or similar products overseen by regulators. Aaron Klein, senior economics fellow at the Brookings Institution, though, says it does not shelter investors who use it.
Stablecoins, it's important to understand understand they may masquerade as a payment instrument, but 90% of trades in stablecoins are about trading in other cryptos.
Klein is Senior Economics Fellow at the Brookings Institution. Jack Dorsey's Block is set to join the S&P 500 index. It's a milestone that underscores the growing influence of digital payments and crypto in mainstream finance. The fintech firm will replace Hess in the benchmark following Chevron's acquisition of the energy producer. Peter Thiel-backed crypto exchange Bullish has filed for an IPO. Bullish is a digital asset exchange operator. WK Kellogg will remove synthetic dyes from its cereals, including Fruit Loops and Apple Jacks, by the end of 2027. Company says 85% of its sales are in foods that don't contain the dyes, and products with dyes include Fruit Loops, Apple Jacks, and some variations of Rice Krispies. Activists and health officials have linked artificial colors to conditions including hyperactivity, obesity, and diabetes in children. Companies and industry groups have maintained that the ingredients are safe. And that's news when you want it. With Bloomberg News Now, I'm Denise Pellegrini, and this is Bloomberg.